Today, I'm going to unbox and take my first look at China's War, 1937 to 1941. This is part of the coin series. In fact, this is volume 13, lucky number. Game design is Brian Train, and I really do like a lot of his designs. He usually handles a lot of modern war, counterinsurgency, um, complex conflict that usually has some political implications as well. So I think this is going to deliver some of that in this package. And it's published by GMT Games, which is kind enough to send this to me. So I want to give a call out to them and thank them for that. This is something that I've been watching for quite some time. I've covered a few coin games. I played most of the coin games. I think there's only 2 or possibly 3 that I haven't gotten to out of the 13, and own several of them as well. And really like that system. Coin stands for counterinsurgency, and there's going to be anywhere from 2 to 4 factions that most of the games really center on 4 factions that have asymmetrical actions, goals, win conditions, and that's what really kind of brings these games to bear, or to kind of to a pivotal point, is the interaction of those 4 very different factions, but yet some of the factions have to align or kind of cooperate in some respects to achieve their goals. And it's a really interesting dance between the different factions. So I like coin, I like Train's designs, and this topic has a very much of an interest for me, as my wife is originally from China, and I've studied some of that history and been to China. And in fact, I was went to the location where Chiang Kai-shek's generals held him hostage until he signed a kind of a peace treaty with the communists so that they could focus on fighting the Japanese. So yes, that is right at the heart of this game. Let's take a look at the back of the box and see what we have here. And this has been in the work for several years. I don't know, at least I would say 2 or 3 is when I first started getting wind of this, maybe longer. So I'm really anxious to finally get this to the table. July 7th, 1937, a nighttime skirmish at the Marco Polo Bridge near Beijing erupts into an invasion and occupation of China by the Imperial Japanese Army that would not end until 1945. Western sources call it the Second Sino-Japanese War. In China, it is the War of Resistance, and in Japan, it is blatantly referred to as the China Incident. China War 1937 to 1941 examines the first 5 years of the conflict when China stood alone against the Japanese Empire. Each player takes the role of a faction seeking to attack or defend the Republic of China, the aggressive Japanese, the harried nationalist, represented by the Kuomintang Party, the rebellious Chinese Communist Party, or the unruly, fractious warlords who are obedient when convenient but have their eye on gaining state power. Using military, political, and economic actions and exploiting various events, players build and maneuver forces to influence or control the population, extract resources, or otherwise achieve their faction's aims. China War 1937-1941 is volume 13 of the coin series that uses similar rules to cover modern historic insurgencies. Included are rules for standalone 4-player game, as well as rule to handle non-player factions, enabling solitaire, 2-player, or multiplayer games. There you go. And there's a map. And if you're familiar with the coin series, then this is going to look somewhat like an old friend. There's kind of an area control element. There's going to be wooden bits of different shapes and sizes that are going to represent, armies or in some coin games, police forces or insurgents or and whether they're going underground or exposed or bases or economic centers. There's all kinds of different factions and units that are usually represented in here, and there's also going to be lines of communication or transportation. This game I'm kind of interested to see how they're going to portray that. That's what some of these boundaries or lines are in here. And then cards are going to be a big part of this. You see some of the cards there, and it has a system where, who's going to be able to get to choose actions first. I mean, each of these factions have different actions. I didn't think I was going to rhyme today, but this gives you the order of who gets to choose first, because there is like a primary action, and if you get to choose first, you get to choose not only your primary action but a secondary action, or you might play the card for its event, or you might just be able to do like just a regular action without the backup action. I mean, there's some different rules in here, and the order of play and what actions you choose and when you choose them come into play into the game, and really kind of are the heart of the gameplay system. So let's get inside this box. As I said, I've been waiting for this for some time. When I first saw it announced a few years ago, I was like, "That is a game I'm interested in." Because I like Coin, I like Train. I was the guy from Anchorman. I like Train. So I like Lamp. So I thought this might be the culmination of what I'm looking for in a coin game, and I should just do a separate episode of just coin games when I get the chance. I rarely have a chance. I still to this day I still think my favorite overall coin game has been Gandhi. I like each one of them for their coverage of topic and how they portray certain aspects. So I love all my children, so to speak. So I like all of the different coin games and what they bring to the table. But Gandhi was just a real interesting one for me and what it did. So anyway, I digress. Let's get to China's War. Here's Coin Series Volume 13. This is the rules of play. Then you've got rules and reference book here. Then you have a playbook, and there you have it. So let's take a look at these in order here. Here's the rules of play, and it is charting out at a slim 23 pages with key terms in the back. And here's a scenario. So you got some different scenarios in here. So it looks like you got at least two different scenarios in here, and then I guess you can just play the standard game probably as well. Don't know if that's separate. So, and here's an inventory of the different counters. This isn't a counter-heavy game, and this isn't your traditional hex and counter. This is primarily card-driven, and with counters and wooden bits being used on the board. So the rules themselves are going to chart out end up at 15 pages. That's where you get to victory. Dual column, some play notes are highlighted blue, some design notes are highlighted kind of a brown or tan, and very easy to read text. So 15 pages of dual column with color interspersed, or some images interspersed, I guess, where necessary. So here's your explanation of the map here, or see an example of the map. We will get to the board, and it is a mounted board at that. So there you have that. You've got your forces, support and opposition, control, resources. This, as I said, this is not your typical hex and counter. This is a very different kind of game. They're not overly complex, but they are different. So, my recommendation, if you're just getting into, not having played this yet, this might be a great introduction to the Coin series. But my typical go-to when I'm bringing someone new into Coin is going with the British way, which is a little bit more streamlined for Coin, and two-player. And the other go-to over the years has been Cuba Libre, which was kind of I think the second in the series, and is a good introduction just because of it kind of keeps everything in context. So, but your mileage may vary. You might want to dive into some of the other ones right at the outset, and this might be a great introduction as well. So here's sequence of play. Operations, those are your actions that I was talking about earlier. Special activities, those are kind of your follow-up actions. Then you got events, then we've seen the rest of this. Okay, here's rules and reference booklet. So this is the card-based non-player. So I think this is for the solo rules, maybe. So yeah, there's going to be, that's what they started doing that. I think they came out with a card set for Fire in the Lake, but I think the first one to have a solo player card set or AI in the box might have been Gandhi. Could be wrong on that. You guys will correct me. But there's a set of cards that kind of take the role of the different factions if you just want to play your faction and have the game play the other ones. From the very beginning, though, even in Andean Abyss and thereon, they had a kind of a decision tree or chart that kind of lets you go through the decisions. So you could always play the game solitaire, but you kind of had to follow some of this reminding me of like a computer diagram of decision tree of if yes, then no, if no, then this, and then that, and then all that other stuff. So it was a little wonky. I intended to end up playing coin four-handed. I would just kind of play each of the four factions to the best of my ability, which gets kind of scatterbrained because each of the factions are totally different in what they're trying to do. So it's kind of a hard way to do it, but it's also an interesting way to learn some of the different factions. And I've used the chart a few times, but then they started coming up with these cards. I think this is all about those cards and how to play the game solitaire. So that's basically the solo rules. Then you got the playbook here, which is, how long is this? This is 27 pages, and this is going to have a tutorial. Gotta love that, and GMT is pretty good about doing that. Faction interactions, pronunciation guide. Yes, I always need that. Event tips and backgrounds, battle for China, designer notes, bibliography, and credits. So this is more of a reference type book. This isn't, you can play the game with just this first rule set. And if you want to play solitaire, then you might want to look into this. And this just gets you into the game a little quicker with the tutorial and then talking a little bit more about strategies, interactions, and the history of it to give you a little bit more feel for what you're getting into. Here are the different factions, and you're going to have these player aids. You're probably going to have 4 of these, I would imagine, because there's 4 players that can play this. So here are the operations. As I was saying before, the primary things you're going to be doing during your turn is doing these operations, and each one is going to be different for the different factions. And then you have the special activities, and you can use the special activities if you take the lead or something like that, or in certain instances you can do this. And these are the follow-on to some of these other ones. So you've got recruit, patrol, sweep, assault, and then the specials govern, transport, partisan, action, and victory. Then you got the victory. So you only have 3 special actions there, special activities, I should say. So that's for the nationalists. Then you have the warlords. So you got recruit, patrol, sweep, and assault. And then they have extort, suborn, organize. You have the Communist Party, has rally, march, attack, and agitate. So you see some similarity between some of the actions and some differences, right? This is very asymmetrical. Their special activities are tax, subvert, and ambush. And then, of course, you have the Japanese or Japan, recruit, patrol, sweep, assault, and then they have a deploy, transport, and anti-bandit action. So there you have it. You're going to get 4 of these, 1 for each of the players, and they're on very nice stock, typical player aid card stock there. Gotta like that. This is the Su Wukong. This is for the solo play. So this is your non-player chart. This looks a little complicated, but trust me, I think it's easier than those diagrams, those decision tree diagrams that they started out with. And these are card-based, so you'll be using a special deck of cards with some of this as well. Here's event instructions. And so I think some of this I think probably still fits into some of the solo play, I would imagine. Propaganda round. This talks about propaganda round, which is kind of a, if you go back to like a Twilight Struggle, you know, there was the cards were kind of a scoring round. I think there's usually some of that in these games as well. It's kind of a break in the action and kind of sees where things are at and changes some stuff up a little bit. And you've got a couple of these. They look like they're the same. They could be different. Here's your counters. This is all you get for counters. Very nice, thick, good counters, pre-rounded on these. These are cornered, but I really clip, especially these come out very clean. So I'm not a clipper by nature anyway. So I like them just the way they are. I like you just the way you are. Don't get me singing. Got some spares here too. So those are just really for references for some of the tracks and on the board. Then we got the board right here. We'll take a look at that here in a second. Bag of baggies, some dice, some bits, some square bits and some round bits. As you can see here, those are going to be on the board. Then you've got some other special bits that have some, screen printing on it and some pawns and kind of cool stuff. And usually there's a side to show whether it's active or inactive or underground or discovered on some of the bits there. Looks like that's mostly the communists there, but also some of the nationalists as well. Here's the cards. We'll take a look at those. And here's that solo deck that comes with, I think it's coming standard in coin games now. So let's take a look at this map here. Mounted map, what I like to call a pair of pants board. As you can see, there's your legs. Oh, it's a long one. It's a long one here. And of course, I got it upside down. Let's turn it around here and see what we have to look at. Wow. Nice big map here. Very clear. You can read, although you probably have well, I'm not going to say about you. I'm not going to make any, you probably can pronounce things perfectly. I have trouble with pronunciation of just English. So I'll get my wife to help me out with some of these. Sichuan, I know that. Probably messed that one up. So you're going to have these areas here, again, somewhat of an area control. Then you're going to have this transportation or communication route here. That's going to come into play. You're going to be marking bases and whether something is neutral or uncontrolled in some of these boxes. The numbers are going to come into play as well, probably mostly for your victory conditions. There's also holding boxes. You have holding boxes for the warlords, the nationalists, for available forces, for the communists, for the available forces. And then the Japanese have a big box there, which is probably, they're the ones that started this whole mess, right? In 1937. So there you go. And then you got a track, which will be using a lot of those counters we saw for this track all the way around to keep track of what your certain victory conditions are. Then you got a sequence of play. And here is where you're going to be choosing your actions. So if you're the first faction, you whether you want to play it for the event or for an op and special activity. So that's where you get to use both of the, both not only your operation, but a special activity. Or you could op only, and then the second faction, and this has the different boxes. And then once you choose that, you're going to end up going to ineligible forces. So when the next card comes out, if you did one of those, you're going to be ineligible. And so it's going to be whoever wasn't the factions, they get first choice now, and they get to do what they need to do. So there's some strategy in when you want to take your actions and what you want to take them for. I mean, and again, there's choices between just doing your actions or your operations, I should say, and the special activities, and then, of course, using the cards for events. And again, it all has kind of a historical basis to it. So they're kind of based on like German aid, embargo, Soviet advisors. They're all kind of based on the history of the time. And again, another reason why I really like war games in general, but the coin series, because I feel like I'm learning something as I go. And you got some great images here as well. And so like on this card here, the communists and then the nationalists will get, the communists is the first faction and the nationalists is the second faction for the choices of doing operations and special activities or playing it for the event. So there you have it. There's some of the cards there. And then we have the solo play, and I'm not going to go too much into that. But I do believe there's cards definitely for Fire in the Lake. I think that was an expansion. I think I might have covered that actually. And then in Gandhi, and there's not in the British Way, but British Way was kind of a collection. It was a game of quad. It was a quad coin collection or a coin quad collection. I don't know. But it was really focused on 2-player. So this is going to give you some of those same kind of decision tree type stuff, but with on card base. So it's a little bit easier to, function and handle in that regard. So there you have it. That is all that you get in a box of China War. So if you are a coin aficionado, a coin fan, then this is a no-brainer. Pick it up. You're going to love it. If you love coin, you're going to love this. If you are just interested in this time period, there's not a ton of games on this time period, especially not covering the entire breadth of the time period from 37 to 41 in China specific. So then this is something to take a look at. If you're just wanting to get into coin or learn a little bit about coin and you like the topic, then again, probably another reason to take a look or take a gander at this bad boy here. So there you have it. That is what I have for you today. Very excited about this and want to get this to the table as soon as I can, because this is very, very near and dear to my heart. Both the history, the gameplay, the designer, the publisher, the components. What more can I say about this? So I won't. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. Take care. Thank you so much for spending some time with me. You got a lot of choices for your social media and YouTube and free time. Thank you for spending some of it with me. Take care. Thanks for watching.